What is kind of your rule of thumb percentage goal for for your test coverage? I mean, I know every project is a unique thing, but do you have kind of a rule of thumb, like I want to hit 80% or try to hit around 80% or something?
Um, I think anywhere north of 70% is good. I mean, yeah, maybe getting past 80%, getting past 90% is good, but I don't think people should strive to have 100% code coverage. Maybe if you're building a rocket ship, yes. If you're building a medical device, yes.
If it's going to be used
If
on me, please test it 100%.
Yes, please. But if you're just building a web app, a SaaS, I think it's okay to have 70%. Um, I think if you're south of 50%, I'd say you're in trouble, and you should probably invest more time improving the test suite. Um, but yeah, I think that's usually what I like to see, like more than 70%. Um,
I've got
because oh yeah, go ahead.
sorry, I have an interesting counter to that. So just as to play devil's advocate. So if you're a developer and you need to go in and add a new feature, and where you're adding the code to, the code coverage is 20%, even though the overall project is 80%. Are you really comfortable with your section that you need to start changing is only at 20%? Because I know I'd be like, well, I need to, even though the project's pretty high, the part I need to go change, I actually want test coverage for that to be pretty high.
Well, yeah, I guess it depends on the file. Like, let's say it's a controller and a Rails app, and it's like 20%, but you need to change only one action. Then I would just focus on the action and say, um, okay, yeah, what is the code coverage percentage for the action? It's like, well, it's nothing, it's zero. So to take it from zero to something, I think it's very powerful. But yeah, I advise against adding test suite for other things that you're not supposed to be touching. Um, I yeah, I mean, I have gotten in trouble in the past for spending way too much time trying to improve the code when I was just supposed to ship a feature. So I'm also not a good example there. Like I will usually take my sweet time to improve the code base, even if I'm supposed to just like move a controller action from one controller to another.
Yeah, I guess that's a good point to also, you got to consider what kind of developer you are, because some people just they like building all the new things and want to build the feature and get the feature out and get that. Because I think to a certain extent, like releasing a new feature and having customers like my SaaS say, "Oh, this is so great, this is so awesome," you literally get a dopamine hit from that. Whereas if I'm developing more tests that they'll never see, and that doesn't do anything for me. Whereas maybe other developers, maybe more so like yourself, you get, you know, you get that dopamine. You like the fact that, oh, things are so ordered now, and now everything's nice and test covered and things like
Mhm.
that. So I think, like in my case, maybe some depending on the developer, maybe they need to lean more towards paying attention to the tests and less the features, and maybe some other developers more to the features and less the tests.
Yeah, I guess I've been working with legacy code for a long time, and I think yeah, when you're building something new like SaaS and you're maybe experimenting with a feature, trying to see like if people are even going to use it or not, or if it's going to add the value that you think it is, then yeah, I don't know. There is an exception there where it's like, well, I don't even know if this feature is going to be around for more than a month. So I don't know. Maybe you don't want to invest a ton of time in that test. But when I go into a project, usually it's because we're upgrading dependency, so we're trying to just make sure that the code runs in two different versions of Rails. Sometimes we get client engagements that are about improving their monoliths and maybe breaking it down into like smaller components, like using component-based Rails architecture or something like that to make it easier to maintain. So we do have to move a bunch of files around to make it sure that it's easier to maintain. One thing that I tell my team is that, we usually want to follow the Boy Scout rule to make sure that we leave things better than how we found them. So if we see that we're moving some file or some action from one controller to another, and we see the opportunity to make it slightly better because, I don't know, we could add a guard clause or whatever, or make the code easier to read if we just restructured it, I would advise to make it so. But yeah, before I refactor anything, I would make sure that it is covered by some sort of test.
And what's
Yeah,
your
I tend to use the Hippocratic oath, first do no harm. So I want to add the tests in before I go and change the code and for someone's code base. If you like this clip and want to watch another one, you can click right here. Or if you want to watch the full video, you can click here.